Welcome back to another Trade Alts technical analysis. We are here with Big Tig yet again, and we're gonna go over some of the recent names that we have done over the last few videos. And there's been quite a bit of movement. Some things have hit their targets, which you can see Lion. It's up on my screen right now. So first thing we're gonna kind of quickly go over, see what's next for that. Nat Gas is ripping today. There's a lot going on. So it's Monday. Kind of want to see if there's any setups out there for the week. So without further ado, let's get to the charts. So again, the first thing that we're going to look at is Lion. It came up to our $10 target. Literally hit your 618 here, basically exactly like you'd want to see. And currently, it's a pretty nice rejection off of that area. So kind of like, this is, again, if you're long Lion, this is not a bad area to have taken some off. This is a pretty natural area for this to pull back from. So now it's kind of like what's next for it. Um, we went over looking at Ichimoku last time, and the Tenkin, your blue line here was just been phenomenal support the entire way up. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that to change. I could see this kind of chopping around here for a few days. And maybe you get that pullback into kind of like this. This is kind of like the first region, I guess, that I would be interested in. Like at a minimum, I'd want to see, maybe you get another. So I'm going to change this, and this might change later. But this is kind of like the first area I would say that I would be interested in it. It's at least some kind of a pullback back to the low nines. Retest this, this key level, maybe give you another test into your Tenkan and see if that holds up. But really, especially off of a move like this, like I would measure, I should need to fix that. But I would measure kind of this recent leg, right? So I'm not really too worried. Sometimes I'll pull from the absolute low. But this is such a clean leg up that I'm kind of more interested just in, like what the Fibonacci retracements look like on this leg, because it's been very directional. And this is the very beginning of the impulsive move to the upside. So anyway, like your 236 comes in line with, you could adjust this down just a little bit just to encompass it. I mean, if this thing is extremely bullish, and it only comes back to retest the 236, holds this key level. Your 10, the problem with that is your Tenkin's a little higher than I'd probably like it to be in terms of, this support holding on this, ridiculous crazy move up. And coming into such a key level like your 618 retracement, I just think that this is like an interesting area for maybe a bounce. But as far as another, again, if you were long line and you were, looking at this as a potential area to take some profits, I would rather, like for me, I'd rather wait for a bit of a deeper retracement. Just especially after a move like this, wait for some kind of mean reversion. Your Tenkan and your Kijin are still moving up pretty aggressively. Um, but I would kind of prefer, a bit of a deeper move. Now I know we looked at the weekly as well, and that was something. This is something that I do want to see. Um, so yeah, like kind of like the nice thing about this green box and why I do think, this is likely to kind of hold as support. And really, it kind of is what you want to see held, is it's the top of cloud, right? So again, you got your rejection, your initial rejection and your pullback, and then you got your breakthrough. So like, see, again, when we looked at this last week, it definitely seemed like it had the momentum to continue up to this target, right? So, a pullback to retest the top of cloud again is definitely not out of the question. It just had a little, it's not out of the question. And I think, that like again, this could be a pretty decent opportunity. I would rather like on the daily time frame, I'd rather have it kind of come down a bit more. But if you're looking on the weekly time frame, you really don't want to see price come back inside a cloud, right? That's just, I mean, it can, and that doesn't mean that it's game over or anything like that. I would just say that if it was to come back inside a cloud, and for me, higher time frames supersede lower time frames. So I'm always, I would be more aware of, kind of like, what these levels look like. And for me, right away, like a level that I would love to see is around $8. Like that's, you have your yearly pivot that's untapped so far. You have, if you're back inside a cloud, your TK lines are literally, basically sitting, kind of near, just underneath it. And, they're likely to continue over the next few weeks. But somewhere around $8 is kind of like a really nice potential area that could be lining up. I don't expect this to happen anytime soon. I mean, you really kind of hope not. Um, but that, as far as like a secondary area, if this green box was to fail, um, this is, I would maybe be a bit patient and kind of wait for this $8 region if it happens. So like, how does that look on the daily? I'm just curious. Like that would put you okay. I mean, yeah, like that's not too bad. Um, you kind of have like three regions. Okay, so you have this first part here that we talked about. You have your 382, which I like quite a bit, which I think that's also a reasonable one to look for a pullback, because on the daily time frame, this is going to be, that would give you kind of your first mean reversion, your first, equilibrium retest, which would be really nice. And that's usually, on nice strong trends, that's not a bad area to kind of look at for a trade. So I would actually like that quite a bit. But this is kind of one that I would watch and see what happens. And again, you have kind of like three areas of interest. Like the first two are what I would class as likely. Like this one is very likely. I think that like I would not be surprised if you get this pullback and kind of chop around here, see is this support or not, and then maybe it makes a maybe this continues higher. But I would be looking for that pullback. Um and this is like a decent area to I would say keep an eye on. Below that, I like this area quite a bit. Now, unfortunately, it's inside a cloud on the weekly time frame, but that's not the end of the world. So I would say like, if this area fails, then this is the next area that I would look at. It's basically wherever your Kijun lines up. So again, this could continue to rise. But I would pay close attention to this yellow line because those retests are often like decent opportunities. So these are kind of like your first two. I would say this is immediate. This is something to watch over this week, basically. And then if this area fails, you get a daily close below this green box, something like that. Then I would be looking for this opportunity as well, which I kind of like this one quite a bit. Not financial advice or anything like that, but I like this region moderately. Okay, and then where is it? It's basically around that pivot, right? Down to around 780, something like that. I just don't. Again, that would be asking kind of a lot. Um, in like a short amount of time. Again, this is something that we'll watch as it progresses. But yeah. So anyway, so take you have anything on this?
Oh yeah. It's pretty interesting how it hit that the magic box up there and nosedived. But
Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
area.
I think today, like the morning strength, I think came from they announced that Steve Mnuchin, who is Trump's Treasury Secretary from his first term, who I guess I think historically he's been in the film and entertainment business, and they added him to the Lionsgate board. His company, um, which is shown, I think it's Liberty 77 Capital. It's Steve Mnuchin's, I guess, holding company or whatever. And then, you can see they own 13% of the company. So, I mean, I think maybe when that was announced, it kind of got some people thinking that there's going to be some like strategic moves made at some point. Usually happens when a lot of these private equity firms, get large positions like that. So just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, definitely a nice move though. I mean, and again, Lionsgate is one that you've been talking about for a while. So yeah, I mean that's Lionsgate in a nutshell. Nice. I think that's again we've come up to the region where we were looking for a bit of a pullback. I guess like the flip side of that is, I would say if we see like a daily close kind of back above today's high, then that's kind of as far as this R1 pivot goes, I mean, maybe you get a little something there. I really wouldn't expect it, to be fair. I think I think that this is just going to continue higher if that's the case. So that's kind of what I would watch. And I think if I remember correctly, um, on the previous analysis is like if we break, again, if we kind of close above today's high, like, so tomorrow or, a few days from now or something like that, then I would be looking, somewhere probably around $12. I would be looking for kind of like a much stronger move higher. I really wouldn't think it overshoots the golden pocket and then pulls back. Can it do that? Of course, but I don't think the R1 is necessarily. I mean, again, when the chart looks like this, I don't really pay any attention to it. This is kind of a really odd example. I'm definitely more, I'm more interested in analyzing what I would consider like normal looking price action. Not too worried about this, whatever was going on here. Um, but yeah, I think if you get a close above today's high, something like that, especially what would be nice is if you got the pullback into this and tested this as support, then got another rise, something like that. I'd feel a lot better. And then you'd have a pretty nice natural trailing stop as well on that. You could move your stop up to entry, for example. I don't know. I'm just saying. Like I kind of like this area. But the next region that I would be looking, beyond kind of where rejected, where we rejected off of currently is probably around $12. I still think Lionsgate looks really good. I think that you've met a really significant target though. And especially for a rise like this, coming right into your 618, this is a normal, natural place to have a bit of a pullback. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that we're seeing kind of a move like we are today. But it doesn't mean that it's game over necessarily. So I would look for is to come down and find some support in one of these green boxes and then look to kind of pick itself up and look for a continuation of this really nice trend. So we want to cover next, Tig.
I guess we should probably go through the natty gas again after
I mean, holy
the big
smokes, right? So
storm.
so we just talked about this on Saturday, I believe. Like it was Saturday when we did our video. Um, I mean, look at like, are you kidding me? So, or maybe it was Friday night after close. Either way, but it was after close. But I distinctly remember saying like, like as long as you're above, like you really don't want to come back below this prior low. But I wouldn't be surprised if early in the week we had a massive spike up literally into this region, and that's exactly what happened today. Um, like this is the this is the kind of insanity. And I know you'll probably go into this a bit more, but it's like there's pretty good reason for this happening. And again, this is another one that we spoke about pretty early, you and I, but I mean, again, like when we shot our video, it was the prior candle, and just look at this ridiculous move today. Just like absolutely mind blowing. Um, Now, I mean, there are other vehicles that, and like we can maybe get into some of them that are a little more like readily accessible for people to trade that move. I'd say the movements are a lot more controlled in a way. There's just less volatility. It's not like this, but I mean, if you're on interactive brokers or something like that, you can trade this. Um, but it's just to show you, like, not gas, especially in this environment, like where you have a lot of news, like a lot of very real world, you know, and a lot of it's weather sometimes, but like you have real world stuff going on that is drawing attention to this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you can see. And again, just another massive move to the upside. So this gets to be a little tricky. This gets to be a little tricky in terms of like what comes next after this, and realistically, what kind of the way that the weather has been and how that does factor in a bit to like kind of like what's driving this price action right now. It wouldn't shock me if this kind of continued, right? Because it's pretty significant. But I mean, now it's like, geez, you have another vertical spike, obviously getting some pushback around this region, which makes sense. But I mean, my goodness, like it definitely gets a little bit harder from here. But kind of the next target would be somewhere, if this thing's going to have another spike up, I would say somewhere in this, where your 786 is to your R3, somewhere in like the 812, 8 and a quarter, something like that region. Just seems like the next logical spike, next logical, resistance, if you'd want to say, that I would be looking for if you're looking at this in particular. But absolutely crazy. Okay, so here, do you remember me talking about this? Um, so this is your fixed range from kind of like this highly volatile region, and I distinctly remember going over this. Um, and if you zoom out, there's other areas. So I'll show you why I look at stuff like this. Okay, so you have your again, you have kind of like your high time frame range where like price spends a lot of time kind of like trading within, right? So you can kind of see like those areas highlighted, but with this macro volume, yeah, or this macro kind of like value area pool that I did from the very beginning. Um, again, it spends most of its time below around 450 and above $2, something like that. Like you can kind of see like where your volume is. Now on this part here, that the early 2000s, we had like some insane, crazy volatility that you see. And if you look at the volume profile, just kind of like measuring this region, your value area high here was like a really, like this is a key level at $10. It spiked right up. So again, went away, came back down into this big high time frame chop zone, and then this spike up came right up to your value area high right here. You see that? So check this out. So on the daily so far, it's the same theory, same concept, right? So again, looking at, and this is now you're on a daily time frame. It's more recent, so this is stuff that happened in 2022. But you had a big spike up in 2022, and then again, if you're just measuring kind of the volume of this, you see your range here. Spends a lot of time. You get your big volatile spike up, and then a massive crash back into that range again, where price spends like the most of its life. It seems like. If you're looking at the volume just from this spike, just like I did here, or the prior example, but this is on a bit smaller scale, look at where the top is right now. It is your value area high. Do you see that? That's interesting. Same thing. Um, Now, is this put in a major high here? I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting if it did that. Um, but this, to me, again, it just signifies, again, if you're looking at prior, again, this is a lot of like technical analysis, right? You're looking to the left to figure out what you think is going to happen on the right. Okay, so very similar. And this is again, this is a very like this is a meaningful level because this is your volume that happened. Again, the last time NG1 was trading here, like trading in this region, this was a significant level to watch. And again, you're seeing a nice bit of a rejection there for the time being. So it's not too surprising. Now you get above this, and then it's, you could be looking for, again, I would be looking for 8, 8, 12, 8 and a quarter, something like that. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it just continues up. I mean, this is a crazy move. Weather's been crazy. A lot of things can happen. But I just thought that this was really interesting that we highlighted this a few days ago, and the spike up that we got today is very similar to that. The overall spike up, looking in a historical context, like the spike that happened in 2022, which now this is the volume. Using the fixed range tool, this is what we're analyzing. It's the same analysis as here. Do you look at the value area highs were very significant, right? So pretty interesting. But so that's why I would be a little cautious here. I mean, again, this is, my goodness, like if you are trading this and you're trading this, intraday, I mean, you go on like I mean, this is ridiculous. Like this is, that's a 10%, 11% move down. Like just since, what is it, like 2 hours ago? So like, I mean, here is roughly where your open is, right? And so it did pull back a little. it moved up. This is like the bulk of the day. It's moved up 30%. Then it has a 10-11% pullback. I mean, this is just insane. Um. So yeah, I mean, do you have anything else? Do you have anything to add to this? I just think like this hit to me. This hit a pretty significant point. I think if it gets above this, which it definitely can, um, I feel like we're still early-ish. I don't know if we are. You'd have. I'd curious what you think on that, but I feel like there's still like more to come, right? Like there still can be more to come with something like this. I just just seeing this, like, this is a pretty technical level. Not very surprised, especially like, like I said, I'm not too surprised that it's actually pulling back from here. The question is, I would say that if it gets above this, then it's gonna likely continue. I wouldn't be surprised to see $10, something like that. But that's kind of like my two regions, I would say. If it does get above this 746 handle, I'd be looking at, low eights. So like again, 812 to 8 1/4. If it gets above that, then probably I would not be surprised if it challenged, this $10 high, something like that, which is it's significant. Um, and then, again, like off of a big spike, anytime we've seen like, again, going back to 2022, I mean, this move up lasted. I mean, once you broke out of this range, basically, like this move in general was like, even starting from, 2020, this was a very significant move. So like it's again, nice base here, and this very expansive move that we've seen so far. I mean, this doesn't have to stop here, you know. So anyway, crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the forward contracts can, go crazy like that. I actually looked at the March through, the next 6 months, and they're still trading in like the $3.50 to $4 range.
Yeah.
So this is obviously kind of, I guess, kind of like the spot price just due to the storm. And if you want, I can maybe
Yeah.
do just a brief synopsis on kind of what happened this weekend and maybe what's happening um, over the next week or so, like weather wise, which is obviously the biggest impact on the price right now. And then, maybe I got a couple other little things that we can talk about with that are longer term. And then we can maybe
Yeah, I
check out a
just
few of the
shared your
other.
screen. So
Okay,
your
cool.
screen's live.
All right. Um, well, this is from Ryan Hall, y'all. He's a one of the the weather Twitter guys that has done a great job kind of explaining the storm and what's happening. And this was kind of his, I guess, brief analysis on kind of what happened over the weekend. But as you can see, it pretty much impacted most of the country. And, you know, got, was that 23 inches of snow in Pennsylvania? You can see some
That's
pretty,
decent.
some pretty heavy,
That's pretty decent, but
pretty heavy snow, like crazy low temperatures. A lot of the ice has kind of knocked out some of the supply. Um, so it's definitely pretty crazy. Um, so what is going to happen? It looks, according to like some of these meteorologists, that the um, the storm is not over. Um, Down at the bottom here, I think it goes a little bit. Well, here's some of the temperatures. So here's kind of I guess, the forecast for the next week. So through January 31st, as you can see, there's still going to be like extreme wind chill for pretty much the whole country. I mean, it's insane. And then you know, it, it looks like they're already forecasting that the first week of February is also going to be um, very low temperatures. Probably it doesn't seem like the ice and the snow will be as a big a deal, but the temperatures will still be extremely low, which means people are going to be spending a lot of money heating their houses um, with nat gas, basically. So
Is that how you hedge your heating bill, Tig? You just go
yeah,
long natty gas, and then I'm just again just a
exactly.
joke, but kind of true.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. I mean the only I guess bad part is I guess there's been quite a few people that have perished from the storm. So that's obviously not great, but hopefully everybody's safe out there and getting to shelter if you've lost power
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
have no heat. Um, but I guess looking at the longer term um, picture, here is the export capacity for the U.S. As you can see right now, we're in like the 16 BCF per day area, and it shows within the next few years that basically that's going to almost double to almost 30 or 118 BCF per day. So I mean that's just from export potential. You could see a lot more demand coming just from that. And for those that don't know, um, this is probably going to be something that is sticky because the export prices are almost double the domestic price. So um, I think in 2025, the average US, the domestic price was about $3.50 per BCF or whatever the unit measure is. And then the export price was around $8 on average in 2025. So it's, basically over 100% premium for exporting. So, basically, that could be a pretty big um, source of demand, and then yeah, as we spoke about the other day, um, the data centers that are going to be coming in over the next few years are going to add to demand. Um, Here's a little article about that that's showing, and the thing is, they keep revising these numbers up. Like last
Yeah.
year it was 2 BCF per day, now it's 3.1 BCF per day, and I'm guessing they're probably going to continue to
Next week it'll be
raise those.
4. Next month it'll
Yeah,
be
right.
6. Not.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another little. These are the planned natural gas um, power plants that are in various stages of approval. And as you can see, um, there's quite a bit in the works over the next few years, which is another uh, big increase in demand. So with that, you can go back to the charts, but some of the other you know, not everybody wants to trade the nat gas futures. So there's a couple of other ways to play it. UNG is the futures, the nat gas futures ETF, which is not just this contract that we're looking at. It obviously owns contracts probably 6 months to a year or maybe even farther out. So it doesn't move quite as it's not as volatile as the forward futures contract, but it's a way to play the upside there. And then there's FCG, which is the natural gas stock ETF. So that's like the major companies that are um, supplying the nat gas market. And then, the I guess the two top players in the U.S. by volume are EXE and EQT. So I don't know if you want to briefly go through any of
Yeah, I mean,
those.
which one would you want to look at?
I mean,
Let me
I
try to
guess,
find.
well,
I know I have like
yeah,
UNG
UN,
here.
UNG kind of is the most,
I mean,
I
this is
guess.
like easy for people to
Yeah,
trade. Like,
yeah. These are,
yeah.
stocks, so pretty much
Um,
anyone can trade them.
yeah, and I mean, this is going to be a fair amount different, and it has to do with the kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the kind of like what like a lot of this is they're not just holding like the nearest contract, right? Like they roll positions month to month. So like they're not going to match, like this isn't going to match like what's happening in at the NG1 like we were just looking at. But I mean it's going to move, like you can see it's up 7.5% today. Um but it's going to be less volatile, I guess is a better way to say it. Due to like a lot, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, like, we spend time talking about all those reasons, but as far as like this goes, wow, look at this candle. That's a nasty, nasty candle right here. Um, this is basically like a gravestone doji. And when you see this, if the next day, it's like, a lot of times you don't get like this, like, crazy gap down. I mean, this is extremely bearish. Extremely like wow. And again, you see like the follow through. Now, obviously that's played out. I just thought that was interesting. Holy smokes. So your pivot on your yearly pivot on UNG's coming up, 16 bucks. You get above that, you know. Actually haven't looked at this in like a really long time. This isn't too bad. It's not too bad. I mean, look, like again, if you expect, if you think nat gas is going to keep pumping, right? Like this is going to continue to move higher. Um, I would just, you're almost up to your 382. As far as like, I do think the pivot for me is probably the most important. Kind of like level here, which also fills in this gap that's been here, which this is like really significant. You have a lot, obviously this big spike up, as long as, you know, nat gas demand remains likely like really elevated, not in any real danger of having, you know, having a bit of a real serious move to the downside anytime soon. If the weather clears up or whatever and you see nat gas kind of come out of the picture a bit, then yeah, I would be a little worried about this. But for now, as long as if you're this is and I don't know what your take is on this. Like to me, this is like kind of like the move up that I'm talking about right now that it's like happening. Like to me, that's pretty short term stuff. And I know like you just gave some reasons on why, like, there's a fair amount of reasons to be bullish on that gas like for a long time. Like the big like macro wise, like, there could be a nice shift in that gas. Um but for me it's like it doesn't necessarily, like that doesn't mean it can't come back down before then. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Um
definitely.
so
I
so it's
mean,
like,
short term,
yeah,
I
like
think
so that's,
definitely.
I just wanted to kind of clarify like what I meant. Um I always wanted to clarify what I meant about, kind of like highlighting recent price action. It's like to me, this I'm talking like real shorter term stuff, but for like the big picture, there could be like, that gas could be pretty bullish long term as well. But for now, I would be a little bit, I would say as long as you're above 14 bucks, basically today's low, and above kind of this anchored VWAP from this high, you start to kind of turn and roll over a bit, then yeah, I would be a little, maybe we're going to come back and revisit some lower levels, but for the time being, you're close to your 382. You know, again, realistically, like to me, the more important level is probably this yearly pivot at $16, which would, you know, also basically, you know, it would fill in this gap. It's not like a huge deal to me as far as the gap goes. It's just I really like the yearly pivots are pretty powerful. But if you start to get above that, and then again, it's like if you know we had shown on the other chart that you know if you get above that level, it's gonna you know it's gonna have probably a pretty meaningful spike, and then you could see a lot higher, for sure. But UNG, this is one that's like anybody can trade this. Like this is very easily accessed. But this is something that you got to be you know careful trading, you know, and know kind of like how this is constructed and you know, for me, this is like shorter term moves. Like basically shorter term moves. I would trade UNG. Um, you know. Anyway, that's a different video. I know this one's kind of getting long. Just thought it was really interesting. Again, some of the stuff that we were talking about. Lionsgate came up, hit its target, and now it's kind of like you know we took a look at what's next. Natty Gas, we talked about you know what Friday or Saturday, and it's up huge again today. So it's just like is that likely is going to be another fun thing to watch and monitor, but I don't really see that changing, you know, over the next few days, something like that. I think you could still see a lot of volatility, and then you know, yeah, appreciate it, Big Tig. We'll pick it up on the next video and you know probably get into some crypto stuff this week for sure. I know that some of you guys have been asking me about kind of like my latest thoughts with crypto and you know it's been a pretty like just a quick touch on that I guess is that market's been pretty slow. It's been bearish, it's been crap for lack of a better you know lack of a better way for me to express it, and there's been so much going on you know in traditional markets that are you know not only moving but they're like you know it's more fun, you're getting you know a lot more volatility in some stuff, and you know the I mean the you know, a lot of the market has been moving higher. You know there's just been significantly more opportunities there, so that's where like my time is being spent, and you know kind of like why we're talking about stuff like this, it's to you know kind of give ourselves you know a decent opportunity to trade things that are not only interesting but are actually moving and moving favorably. So but you know crypto, I think that it's you're seeing a lot of stuff in metals, right? Gold, silver, that's been absolutely ripping. You we hear us speak about that this week, and then you know yeah, I mean how does that like transition to crypto if it does? And I think that's going to be the subject of like my next video, like just looking at the market, seeing how it's done, seeing how it's been doing, and seeing kind of like trying to highlight some interesting areas, which there are some to me. It's just you know it's been in this area, it's been in this range, been in this region that is just not that it's there's not much for me to want to do personally, so that's why I haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. So anyway, I think Tig might have had to step away. But you know, again, great video. Appreciate the time, and we'll see you on the next one.